Hi, this is Joe McNally for Adorama TV, and we're on a bright, sunny location, and I'm going to give you a few quick tips about how to handle that type of condition and some strategies.
Adorama TV presents Photo on the Go with Joe McNally, where you'll go behind the scenes to see how great photos are made.
Hi, this is Joe McNally for Adorama TV. A reason I go to Adorama? It's a real store with real people, and I've got friends and associates there who have guided me through all my camera purchases for years. Hi, this is Joe McNally for Adorama TV, and I'm in a famous location right now in New Mexico, Eve's Movie Ranch. It's an amazing place. It's been around since 1969, built for the Cheyenne Social Club movie. And it's under the directorship of Thomas Wingate, who is an amazing guy who keeps this place together and running. And it's just a wonderful place to use as a backdrop for photographs. But as you can see, you can look at the light that's hitting me right now. Pretty strong light. So we're going to talk very briefly today about some quick tips to survive on a hot, sunny, windy day, and give you a couple things that if you have somebody in your family going back to school, okay, something simple, something affordable, and something incredibly useful. It's actually hanging around my neck right now in bright sunlight. It's called a Hoodman loupe, but we'll get into that later. All right, we're here at Eve's Movie Ranch, which is a famous location in movie making. Some really great Westerns have been shot here, so it's really a privilege to have this as our backdrop. It's really a terrific place to shoot here in New Mexico. But we're also got, just tons of sunlight out here, and as you can see, no real open shade, no big trees and that type of thing, which you would automatically gravitate to put your subjects in a quality of shade. So I made my own. What I'm creating shade with is this, a 74-inch Octa. We've used it sometimes on the set. We haven't used it all the time for every setup we've done, but I've left it up during the entire shoot because what it does for me is create kind of almost like a tree size, splash of shadow back in here, and I can actually put my subjects in there. Two things happen. I get control of the light for them because they're in open shade, and it's much less painful for them to pose because they don't have to deal with the bright sun. What we've actually been working with to do a wonderful couples portrait of Rick and Nancy is this other light right over here. It's a strip light, a 2-foot by 6-foot strip light, and we're using Ranger power packs, Elinchrom heads, and just pumping a lot of light into these light shaping tools because why? There's a lot of light out here and I have to match it. Beautiful. Great. Awesome. Okay, so I've got a portrait session, a couple's portrait, going with Rick Iannucci and Nancy DeSantis, who run a wonderful organization here in New Mexico called Horses for Heroes, Cowboy Up, where they bond returning vets from the Middle East who have been wounded with horses. And I've heard this expression before, there's something about the outside of a horse that's good for the inside of a human being. And that's kind of the emotional core of what's going on with these vets and these horses. And they're a wonderful couple, and so I'm privileged to shoot a couple's portrait out here in this hot blazing sun. Now, we're going to show you that we've got them in a quality of open shade that actually derives from my light shapers, which I mentioned. Also, another thing, because they are so iconic, classic Western cowboy, cowgirl kind of look, what I've done, and I often do this for my portraiture, I frame up vertically, use a slightly telephoto lens. Here I'm using an 85-1.4 on a D800E, and I shift up my area for the photograph from a traditional DSLR format to what's called a 5:4 ratio, which kind of gets back into, I think anyway, for my sensibilities, a little more of a classic portraiture kind of a look and a feel. I also shift my camera into monochrome because I view this as a black and white photograph. And one of the things that I do pretty religiously stems from film days. When you placed your bet in film days and went out with black and white film, I really feel it influenced the way you saw. And you had no recourse. You had black and white film, and that was it. Now with digital, of course, I'm shooting raw. Underneath all this, I do retain the color, but I always like to see the feel of what I'm getting on location. So I dial the camera into monochrome, I crop it to 5:4, and then I frame up in what I feel is a really powerful traditional sort of look for a portrait. And they're right next to each other, And the portrait light I'm using for them is a strip light. It's an Elinchrom 2x6 strip light, which is a beautiful light for a portrait like this because it's essentially a long, skinny light that travels all along them, and it fills and informs their faces beautifully and also travels along their body line. And it's a vertical light, and they're, vertical objects, people standing in front of the lens. The strip light is a wonderful way to go. Let's get a few more. Here we go. Beautiful. Just bring the rifle in a little bit, Rick. Fantastic. Great. Nice. Good. The pack is all the way up. 7.5. They're being hit with little slivers of light here and there, but I'm pumping so much light at them that I'm really covering them with flash. So my near-term light is flash. It looks good, guys. It looks really good. Cool. So with the Hoodman loupe, I can get an idea of the file, the tonality, the exposure, all that sort of stuff. If I'm trying to fight the sun here, I haven't got a prayer, of getting a good look at the picture I just shot. Okay, so a couple things we covered in the hot sun on a windy day with no shade. Using your light shapers to create a sense of open shade and locating your folks underneath that so you have control over them with your own lights. Using big light shapers and pumping a lot of light through them to match the very intense level of ambient light that exists out here. Working with a couple's portrait and cropping to 5:4 and shifting the camera into monochrome to give you kind of a traditional look to the portrait that perhaps, hopefully, matches the iconic nature of the couple I was doing the portrait of, Rick and Nancy, who, as I always say, I'm proud to know them. They run a wonderful program here in New Mexico for returning vets called Horses for Heroes, Cowboy Up. And it's also great to be here at Eve's Ranch, which is just a terrific location. And then at the end of it, okay, kind of just a small piece of the puzzle, but an important one, we talked about how handy on a day like today the Hoodman loupe is to see your LCD. And it's a really cool thing as a gift, returning back to school or whatever it might be, affordable, and just a handy thing for a beginning photo student or someone who is studying to throw in their camera bag, and gives you an edge on a day like today when it's really tough to see your LCD. So many thanks for stopping by. This is Joe McNally for Adorama TV.
For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit Adorama.com. Place your order by 8 p.m. and it ships the same day. Plus, next time you're in New York City, be sure to visit our store located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue.